going on, everyone? Thanks for joining us on another episode of the VivTech We have an interview for you guys today. We are bringing on Jamie Rowe. She is part of our Patreon, and what we are going to be interviewing her about is she doesn't even have a retic yet. So why bring someone who doesn't have a retic on a retic podcast? That's because she has done her due diligence and research on the animal that she wants to have, which I'm pretty sure is a super dwarf. We'll talk to her about that, but we want to pick her brain on, things like when did she feel ready? When does she plan to buy one? What did she learn in the process? And all that good stuff. So, for those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for the support. Like, comment down below, and subscribe. And don't forget that we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well.
All right, guys, remember to head on over to USARK and become a member today. If you're part of the Retic or any part of the reptile community, it is of the utmost importance that you're a member and helping them when it comes to fighting for our rights to keep the animals that we love. So head over to usark.org today and become a member.
Yeah, so before we go ahead and bring Jamie on, we're just going to tune into our sponsors that we can't thank enough. So we will be right back with Jamie. Whether you're just getting into retics or you've been breeding for years, the first place you want to visit is Steward Design. More and more breeders keep showing up at shows, on Morph Market, and all over socials. Sometimes it may feel impossible to get anyone's attention. Steward Design helps small businesses like yours do big things through brand clarity, helping entrepreneurs to start and scale businesses that are easy to know and love. Their work can help any company or industry, but they've done a ton of work for ours. Steward Design created the brand for USARKs, Canova, Reach Out Reptiles, Coiled, and dozens of other well-known reptile breeders. Like many of us, the owner of Steward Design, Blake, is a keeper and breeder who fell in love with retics. Although Steward Design does a lot of corporate work, Blake has a passion for working with people in the reptile industry. So, wondering if Steward Design is right for you? Steward Design can help if you're just getting started or you're ready to take things to the next level. Maybe you're struggling to stand out and build your presence online or at shows. And maybe you don't want to be like the other guys or get lost in the crowd. You want to make your own way doing what you love. You might just have a big idea and know your business is special, but you need help sharing it with the reptile community. If something here resonates with you, reach out to Blake. Have a conversation with him. To learn more or get started, visit sdidentity.com or call them at 855-SD-LOGOS. Clear brand, own markets, Steward Design helps create them. If you are in the market for an enclosure for your reticulated python or any other one of your reptiles, Focus Cubed Habitats is your one-stop shop for not only the best-looking cages on the market, but also provide amazing features and add-ons to your cages. We partnered with Focus Cubed Habitats because they continue to innovate and change the way we house our animals unlike any other caging company out there. Their cages are designed intelligently and provide the most stylish and secure housing for your animals' comfort and well-being. Visit focuscubedhabitats.com for your animals' caging needs. Again, visit focuscubedhabitats.com for some amazing and stylish enclosures.
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the ReticLounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit VivTechProducts.com and use the code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit VivTechProducts.com and use our affiliate code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off.
All right, Jamie, what's going on?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, yeah. None of us are wearing green. How awful.
Oh, I have green on.
Okay, there you go.
It's just a little bit.
Right. Tell us, first off, go ahead and introduce yourself and animals you have, where you're from. Let our listeners know who you are.
Okay. Hey, guys. I am Jamie. I have actually had reptiles for a long time. Since I've been in my early 20s, I worked at a pet store, and I started as a cashier, and I was like 20, 21, and soon after that became the department manager of the small animals section, which is basically all the animals. So I was in charge of like getting into all the animals and take care of them.
Just not the dinosaurs.
Just not the dinosaurs, yeah. And that was a time where we would get in full-grown ball pythons covered in ticks and all kinds of stuff. Green iguanas, Chinese water dragons,
Was,
all the good stuff from the 90s.
was it like a local pet store, or was it
It
like a
was a
chain?
small chain. It was called Super Pets. I don't know if it was a chain, but I think it was like a Midwest chain possibly.
Okay.
Seeing as you were working with some of those imports from back then, do you know where any of them were coming from?
No, we just got I said what we needed, and I just got a box full of animals.
Okay.
I would say a good portion of the snakes were, and these are ball pythons, were not friendly. And then the green iguanas, usually they had to be put back in the back to be, try to get them back to not skin and bones. We lost about half of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's about right with imports.
Yep. So, and this was like fat tail geckos. Those are like the exotic ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I had reptiles here and there. People would bring pets in that they didn't want anymore. So I had naturalistic setups before it was like bioactive, with the soil, and this was when we had the lights and stuff, but it wasn't like the research. Any research I did was Reptile magazine.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no internet. We had internet, but there wasn't like what it is now.
Yeah.
There are forums, and the passionate could dig through for some
Yeah.
information, but
Yep,
not
yep.
everything you needed.
Right.
Oh yeah. And then in Ohio, I forget if I said that. And then, so right now I have a bearded dragon who was a Craigslist find for free on 14-year-old kid. He took good care of him, but he was a year old. I got him for free. He started out in a 40-gallon. He's been upgraded since then, and you guys know I'm getting ready to upgrade him again.
Yep.
My ball python, that's technically my daughter's. We got him. It was an impulse buy, but not so much. I've done a ton of research on him. I wasn't planning on buying him that day.
Right.
But I had all the equipment, and he's set up in it's not bioactive, but it's naturalistic setup.
Cool.
We're still fiddling with him.
It's so weird because I'll go on Instagram and I'll be scrolling through my feed, and I'll all of a sudden see a ball python in a naturalistic enclosure. It's almost like a rarity these days. I always double take it. I'm like, wait, what? Someone's got a ball python in a beautiful enclosure?
Oh yeah. Well, that's like my number one thing is I love bioactive. I love naturalistic. I'm a native plant gardener, so
Yep.
I've been researching like plants native to the west. I think it's like mid central Africa. My leopard gecko. I want to get a leopard gecko. I've been researching plants. That Pakistan. I think that's the area that leopard geckos are from. The anole. I have a little brown anole. He came in on a shipment of plants. I think it was at Walmart.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and he lives in a full bioactive setup. He's probably the first one I want to get a VivTech bulb for.
Cool.
I'm gonna try on him. And then I have fuzzies like 2 dogs, 3 cats, guinea pigs, and then the tarantulas, of course.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about all the plant stuff that you've been doing and how that's going to kind of go into your reptile keeping, or how it has already been incorporated.
Yeah.
So when did you get into this plant hobby of yours? Because it looks like you've gotten pretty heavy.
Professional planting.
Oh, yeah. I've actually had plants. My mom had plants like the whole time I grew up, 70s and 80s. We always had house plants. And then,
Okay.
I've always had house plants, but probably when the pandemic hit, these millennials went crazy with plants, and now they're available everywhere. So I could go in a Walmart or a Kroger and buy more like rare species of plants. So I probably have over 100 houseplants.
That's awesome.
Yeah, scattered out through my house. So plants, I've always had love animals, and I've always loved plants. And then having to be able to have those two things combined,
yeah, they go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, they do.
That's pretty awesome. once we get into a little bit about like what struck you with retics and everything, I definitely want to hear your plans for all that. But so real quick, I want to just drop a VivTech plug here. So Erica and Ryan McVeigh sent me over their gateway and their sensors that read ambient temperature, humidity. That's connected to Wi-Fi. You can get notifications pushed over to your cell phone that you can control through their app. And everyone knows I've talked about Sensor Push as like the ultimate amazing sensor. They are very expensive, but they are literally top of the line sensors that you can buy out there. One sensor is $99 or gateways $99. They're expensive stuff, but I have a sensor next to my Sensor Push in the incubator and a sensor next to my Sensor Push next to one of my enclosures. And the largest difference of temperature that I have seen so far is only 0.4 degrees, which is extremely impressive because these VivTech sensors and the gateway are extremely affordable when you compare them to Sensor Push. So just wanted to give an update on that. Ryan, Erica, thank you for that. So far, it's looking good.
Oh yeah, and my house is so old and drafty. Having temperature gauges is a must.
Yeah. So you're on because you don't have a retic yet.
Nope.
And I love that because you've been a part of our Patreon community for months now. And what's awesome about you being a part of that is the involvement even with other species and everything that we're able to share outside of retics. But let me ask you this. Before you joined our Patreon, like how long before you joined our Patreon were you interested in getting a super dwarf? You want a super dwarf retic, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So like how long before?
Probably just a few months. I love reptile YouTubers, and I was watching Wicked Reptiles. That's hard to say.
It is.
And he had Garrett on, and I've always loved like big snakes. They're just, but realistically, I can't have a big snake. I don't have the space for a big snake. I don't know if my husband would be agreeable to like a 19-foot snake. You guys know I live in Ohio. I can't have anything over 12 feet, which I found out recently. So I was watching it, and I had Garrett on, and then he was talking about the super dope retics, and I was like blown away that there was something I wanted in a tiny package,
Right.
and immediately I was like, I want one of these. So I do what I always do, which people always talk about Facebook. It's the devil. It's horrible, but you can find some really good groups on Facebook.
Right.
And it's so much different from a care sheet because a care sheet's like the static. This is what it is.
And
But
none of the care sheets ever match.
Oh, no, they don't. And then, so if you find a group, a reptile group for a certain species, you get like firsthand knowledge. I was really interested in tegus. I joined a tegu group. I was in it for 6 months, and I was like, this is not for me. I learned from these people. There's just some stuff I was like, I'm glad I did this before I bought a tegu. So I was kind of searching through the Facebook pages, and I found the group, the Retic Super Dwarf Retic group that you and Garrett are admins of. And through there, I found the ReticLounge, which I think I found you like right when you guys started. I'm pretty sure you were only a couple episodes in. And then I just joined the Discord because what better way to learn about a snake, or a reptile you don't have than join a group of people that are willing to share all their experiences.
Right. I don't even have to drop a Patreon plug.
No, I mean, honestly, joining, this is not like, like brown nosing or anything for a discount, but joining the Discord page is probably one of the best choices I made for the research because, I mean, honestly, I could go on there any time of day and ask a question, which I do constantly. I'm always like, even with my ball python, I can't get him to eat. And everyone is so friendly on the Discord, and they immediately have answers to my questions. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you kind of feel at home there.
Yeah.
And so let me go ahead and pick your brain on so you were wanting a big
Sorry, there's
That's your
fireworks
cat.
in the back.
Oh,
There's
That's
fireworks. Yeah,
literally fireworks.
it's the first warm day we've had, and people are just eating it up. So I'm gonna mute myself for a little bit so you
they're
don't
just
hear
celebrating.
the finale going on outside.
I was literally about to ask Jamie, like, are you safe? Like, it sounded like muffled gunshots in the background. I was like, do you live in an okay place?
Yeah.
I mean, I had to listen for a second.
All right, Jamie. So I guess you talked about like, wanting a big snake in a small package, and you're talking about like that being something that drove you when you found out about super dwarf retics. But anything else about retics that kind of like is making you really want them?
I think it's probably the intelligence. I like having an intelligent animal, and I like having an animal that can recognize me as an owner, that I can offer, an enriching environment, and they're going to take advantage of it. Um, I will say, and I mean, everyone that has a super dwarf or a regular retic, I guess, always talks about how smart they are,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a big pro for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I love my bearded dragon. They're not the smartest, you know, cookie in the box.
So I mean, I feel like bearded dragons like are, but like in comparison to like other lizards, like they definitely have their moments.
Yeah, like he definitely recognizes like I bring him food,
Right.
but
Like I have a buddy who has a bearded dragon, and like when he takes out the water bowl and puts fresh water in it, he has to put his finger in the water and make the water move for the bearded dragon to actually be like, oh, there's water in here.
well, most people don't even give their bearded dragon a water bowl, because they supposedly don't recognize water. But I've seen mine drinking out of his.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. See, I'm learning something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're at the point, like, do you feel like you are ready to own a retic?
Yes, I think the only thing that's stopping me at this point is just how expensive they are.
Yeah,
Because I
like
want
Especially when you have that size limitation on
Yes.
you.
Yeah. I mean, I could buy like a half mainland, but then that would defeat the purpose of getting the smaller package. And, I want to be ready. I want to have everything ready for the snake, and I could get one and have a little quarantine tub and say, I'll have the enclosure in a couple months. But, I don't want to procrastinate on that. I want to have this as an active snake, it's an intelligent snake. I want to be able to have the enclosure, have it set up, and be ready to go. And that's part of the financial, like you're going to get an expensive snake, expensive enclosure. Luckily, my husband's handy and he can build something for me. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually a good way to go. A lot of people are very quick to want to jump in and buy the snake and don't think about, a year down the road or even that. And then they're scrambling, and then they're like, oh, I need an enclosure now. And then they go to buy one. They're like, everyone has a 12 to 16 week wait, right?
I've waited 6 months for a cage before, and
Oh, yeah.
When you're talking about an upgrade, you don't have 6 months to wait.
But and I mean, I want to have UV on him on the retic, and all the heat and the plants and the all the stuff that goes with the naturalistic enclosure. It's not a cheap endeavor.
Yeah, every time someone asks me about how I did my caging at the start, I said I started with their adult caging and just added as much as I needed to make them comfortable in there.
Yeah. So you've done a bunch of research. In doing your research, like, what did you find? What was correct? What was incorrect? Tell us about that journey.
I
Yeah,
think
tips for new people like trying to get into it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the feeding. People have such a differing opinion. A few small meals closer together, big meals fall apart. It's still really confusing, and I think that's part of having the Discord community. I think everyone on there pretty much agrees, on the smaller, not overfeeding, I guess power feeding. I've
Right.
listened to a couple podcasts about snakes that are overweight
Mhm.
and all the what's it called? The not autopsy, what's the word?
Necropsy?
Necropsy, yeah.
Yeah.
On snakes that pass away and they have like the fatty liver disease and all that stuff. And I think so, but feeding is one, and then just the racks in general. I'm not a rack person, but I also don't have a ton of animals. I don't, it's not like like no Rex, I'm against Rex, but as a casual keeper with only a few animals, you know, someone's like, here's this drawer and it has a bowl and some paper and a
Right.
stick, you know, like that's just not who I am.
Right.
And there's such, it's not even in the retic community. I guess it's in just the snake community in general. It's, you know, and then people don't listen to the latest research, you know, on brain development and enrichment and muscle tone and things like that. So, but I do think the feeding, once I get my retic, you know, I'll be on there every day. Like, what am I doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's totally okay because I still do that to this day. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my 7 years of keeping, I've changed up how I've fed drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I keep it, and mine is totally different. You know, and like even within a given year with all my snakes, I go through periods of really big meals spaced out very far, and then, you know, and then smaller meals way more frequently. And
Well, and I just from the research I've done, I feel like that's almost the right way to go because snakes don't have consistency in nature.
right.
They might have a couple big meals and then, you know, go for a little while, then have a few small meals. So I don't know necessarily there's a right or wrong answer as long as your snake is healthy.
Not
Right.
losing weight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about how hardy these animals are
Yeah.
episode after episode. You have to try to do some damage to do some damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think probably obesity is probably the number one. And, you know, none of my animals are obese. So except for my pit bull, but that's not my fault. That's my
Yeah.
That's the one that scares me the
Yeah.
most for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were doing your research, did you ever come across a point where like you kind of had doubts? Like you were like, "Ooh, wait, maybe."
Whenever I hear about the feeding response, that's probably my number one worry. You know, you always see people with their snakes out of their enclosures and they're handling them and their snakes are, you know, friendly, I guess, as friendly as snakes can be, but then you'll hear like, no, make sure you tap them and they have this feeding response. And I think that's a little nerve wracking a little bit. Have never owned an animal that's an issue. You know, like my bearded dragon's not lunging out of its enclosure. My ball python just hides in his log every time I open his enclosure. And, you know, my knoll just hides. And, you know, the reptiles I've had, you know, I've had geckos and things like that. Like, I do feel like that's why I want to start off the baby. Because all my animals tend to be found animals, you know, like adopted or rescued or someone's given an animal away. Will be one of the very first animals that I bought specifically from a breeder, specifically as a baby, just so it helped me get over that fear of that feeding response a little bit.
I did the same thing because I'm a big baby,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm not going to say that it's all that we make it out to be. They're not lunging out at us every single time we open their enclosure, but you know, it's going to happen. So you just have to be aware and know that they get overexcited for food sometimes.
Well, and I wish more people would. It's either like the crazy sensational stuff, or it's their retics out of their enclosure are eating. Like
like
I would
what
like
you
to
see online.
Yeah. It'd be nice to just see people doing the tap, you know, with the hook and getting their snakes out.
Right.
Just to see how that goes.
We'll put some more Patreon content out there and do that.
Yeah.
I even have a video I'm about to put on Patreon here soon, and I'm handling my biggest girl. She's still not off food, still heavy into her feeding cycle for breeding. And, you know, any little thing that gets near her face, she gets a little jumpy. So as I was putting her in the tub, even then she reacted and opened her mouth a little bit. But, you know.
Yeah.
So things like that, I think, are super valuable for keepers. It's just, it's hard to put that out in an educational way without it also being used as fodder against us.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, this big scary snake's coming at you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I think that's a good thing to, like, in general, if no one has ever owned, like, if someone hasn't owned a retic before, please start with a baby.
Yeah.
Hatchling as young as you can buy it. Or with a super dwarf, at least within that first year, because what I've noticed is the only snakes that I get a little nervous about when opening up that enclosure using the hook to turn off that food response are all snakes that I didn't raise, that I got already established in adult, um, but all the animals that I've had since they were within that first year, I don't have a single one that I ever get nervous about because I am very on point with knowing all of that behavior, and it's kind of a beautiful process to be able to grow with your animal and watch them mature and grow, and you get to learn their body language. So starting off with a baby is definitely the right way to go.
Well, and I also finding breeders that I either know personally, like you two, or offhand, like Eric, that I know are handling their babies too. And like I know they're handling their babies, and that
Right.
they're not just sending me some baby that's been stuck in a grow out tub for 6 months, and then here's your baby that hasn't been it's been handled 2 times to be weighed or photographed. I think that's and super important to make those connections in the community to find breeders that even if I don't buy from one of you guys, I know I can ask you like, hey, this person has a snake. What do you think?
Right. Right. So in regards to, so feeding was that biggest concern that you had. Any others that you ran across or when you were doing research that you're like, maybe not?
The feeding was like a big one. Probably the pee and the poop you guys talk about constantly is another one, like, because I want to go bioactive or at least naturalistic, because there is kind of a difference. But you never hardly see it in the retic community. And I don't know if that's just because it's such a niche and a lot of breeders have them and they keep them very sterile. I'm starting to see a little bit more. I know I shared one on Discord the other day, a beautiful bioactive setup, and I asked that member some questions about it, and she says it works fine. I guess if you don't have a big giant mainland, you know, pooping all over the place, but
Right.
um, and I keep my animals enclosures clean, but I'm not like I'm busy. I work. I leave my house at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't get home until 7 o'clock in the evening. I cook
Hmm.
dinner Monday through Friday. So I don't have downtime until 8 o'clock at night. Uh,
Right.
so I don't want to spend every single day cleaning up retic pee and poop.
Yeah.
So having a smaller that's another thing. Having a smaller dwarf species, I'm hoping that'll be a little bit easier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited to see some of your progress with it, get tips on plants and stuff you're using
Mhm.
in there. But that kind of leads me into my next question. Can you describe some of the plans you have for setting up your enclosure for the super dwarf?
Yeah. So.
Like what heating you're going to be
Mhm,
using? Obviously, you said you're going to be doing bioactive, but
mhm.
a little bit deeper into that.
Well, I live it on 2 acres. It's a old apple orchard, like
Oh,
not the
nice.
little tiny apple trees that you see now, but like these trees are 50 to 60 years old. So I have tons of big, huge branches. I have natural wood, like cave systems, like logs that are hollowed out. I found Daniel, how you pronounce his last name? Solis.
Solis. Yeah.
Yeah, his videos have been awesome. I love his caves, the caves with the little nooks and cranny. So that's kind of why I want to do like a bigger enclosure and have one side more of a tropical jungle that kind of leads into something that's like a cave system. I know it's like big plans, but because
That's like the right way to do that, though. That's like
yeah.
amazing. I love hearing that.
So
Yeah.
my thing is I have to. My husband is very important in this procedure because he's got to actually build me the skeleton of this. Um, So I would like to have, but I can't decide whether I want to do like the foam that looks like the rocks or actually get rocks. Because once this setup is set up, it's probably not going to be moved anywhere. We're not moving. This is our forever home. I don't have to worry about getting it out of a doorway or anything. So it would be really nice to have two separate like microclimates. Uh, so I'm not sure about the heat yet. That's still things I have to work out probably with you guys. I definitely will have, I can't use ambient. My house is freezing cold in the winter time. I don't have air conditioning, so in the summertime I probably could. But I'm used to dealing with heating elements with the bearded dragon. He's got to have like 103, 110 hotspot. But unfortunately, with regulations, all of the cheap heat bulbs are going. They're illegal now, I think. So
Right.
I have to buy very expensive reptile heating elements. So we'll see.
Any heat source that you're leaning towards?
I don't know because after listening to you guys, I've realized that there's not such a need for an intense hotspot, which is good. So I wasn't sure if I should just use a deep heat projector bulb. Arcadia makes some nice ones with the shield, the cages.
Yeah.
That
Those
was one of them, and
the deep heat projections. I've read a lot about them, and I know
mhm.
people that use them with retics, and they seem to work really well.
Yeah, I had one on the ball python, but he prefers the basking bulb. He never came out in the DHP, but he does come out in the visible light and
Okay, cool.
bask at night. Right before I turn his light off, he usually comes out and bask a little bit. That might just be him. I don't know. And I definitely am going to give him my retake UV for 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely react to it.
Yeah.
100%.
And then, like I said, I have, and then plants will just be your basic, pothos, things like that. I do need to do some research on the Indonesian plant life.
I was going to ask if you've gone that far.
No, I haven't gone that far because I'm still doing my bearded dragons. He's getting that upgrade, and I got some seeds from New Zealand that I need to start to plant all around his enclosure. It's native, like Australian seeds, because I'm a giant nerd.
I mean, I think that would be awesome if you were able to find native Indonesian plants.
Yeah.
I don't even know if this is even possible, but even trying to find any native like plants to the island, the super dwarf that you plan to get, right?
Oh yeah.
I
And
think
the best way to do that is actually use iNaturalist.
Oh yeah, I use that all the time for herping
Yeah.
in the summer.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, if you use iNaturalist, people will take pictures of plants, and then what I do is I look at those plants, and then I Google that plant, and then I see if it's an invasive species, which a lot of times it is, or if it's not endemic to that area.
That's again, this is kind of, going back into, we've talked about this before, but I really appreciate the people that are getting into these animals for the first time, and the mindset is so much different than it was even like 5-6 years ago in regards to what you provide for the animal and all that kind of stuff.
Well, 7 years ago, people were just gunning to get these things because they
Right.
thought they wouldn't be able to. And then now that, it's opened up again, we're able to think about it in a little bit more of a thought out process, and then instead of just trying to get the animal inside your house.
Well, and then, I don't have any breeding plans. This is purely a pleasure animal. I don't know how you would describe it. Like it's for me to look at. So I want the whole thing to be beautiful.
Right.
Right.
So you mentioned like a semi-bioactive. Like, what kind of soil do you generally use or are planning to use?
You can just use plain topsoil. It has to just be Timberline. I think that's the brand. Just makes it. There's no fertilizer or anything like that in there. And then you can also use cocoa core. You can mix that in there a little bit. So like my bearded dragon, he's got a little bit of clay, a little bit of sand in his enclosure mix. But
Cool.
That one I'll probably use some like orchard bark. The number one thing is just to find a soil, the base soil that's not like a fertilized soil. So it'll probably just be topsoil with some amendments. So maybe some charcoal, maybe some perlite or pumice, just to make it airy. The thing is, it's going to be heavy because it's going to be at least 6 to 8 inches. And then I've been racking my brain to figure out the drainage layer, and if I can put a drainage on the bottom that I could wet it down every once in a while and just soak the soil and have it drain out. We'll see. I don't know. That's just one of my things that's brewing in my head, but I have to be careful of the cleanup crew, which is all the isopods and springtails.
Right.
Are you thinking of anything bigger as far as the cleanup crew?
I don't know. It'll probably just be, I could also do like dubia roaches.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I actually have a dubia roach colony that's also in a bioactive enclosure. And
Talk about providing the most for your animals.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
And I love them. My daughters called them. All my animals have names, and they're just the Raphaels. Every single one of them is the Raphaels, and so yeah, I miss them every day. They get fresh greens and fruits, and it was funny because it was actually a package of dubias that was for my bearded dragon. And people are gonna think it's weird, but they're cute. The babies look like little roly-polies, and I just couldn't do it. So now he just gets crickets and black soldier fly larvae.
And you have that's funny. You
Yeah,
turned your roaches into your pets. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I did.
So yeah, I mean, just feedback in regards to like bioactive and especially with the big poop and stuff. I've
Mhm,
talked to a lot of people
mhm,
and they say that it's totally doable, but when they do get bigger and the crap gets big, you
mhm.
just gotta spot clean it.
Well, and I spot clean my bearded dragon. The cleanup crew doesn't eat the urates, so I just have to pick those up out of there, those little dried white pellets. But they clean up everything around it. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So now I want to know, like, did you come across any, uh, like, come across any information like myths or things that you had originally thought about retics that you came across in your research that proved to not be true?
Um, More so the mainland, not the dwarf retics, which is like, I remember reading articles like the reticulated python is the only python that's been known to eat a human in the wild. Have you
Oh,
guys ever read that article?
classic.
Yeah, and I'm like, and then I've seen a couple of sensational videos like this woman that went to rescue one. I mean, it bit her and wrapped her arm, and like there's blood everywhere. Um, so I think seeing those and you're kind of little, they're not aggressive, like that. I think that's the one thing that I've learned, that a lot of those bites that I've seen have been food responses of non-experienced keepers and
Right.
not aggressive bites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think that we've gotten away from like the traditional classic mean, defensive
Hmm.
retic. There's always going to be one that one in like a bunch that has that kind of demeanor, but um, yeah, super tameable. And I mean, you mentioned Daniel Solis' name earlier. Talking to Daniel um, over Facebook when he was on the islands, and they would actually grab the animals from these
Hmm.
super dwarf islands. Like, not a single one was inclined to bite.
Oh yeah, and then I watched the Dave Kaufman and Adam Wicken, is that, they were in that cave,
Hmm.
and there was retics everywhere, and they were all just like super chill.
Right.
I
They have
think
no
they're
reason to defend
right.
themselves.
Yeah.
They're perfectly taken care of. They have
Hmm.
food in abundance. Yeah.
Well, it's
There's
funny
nothing
because
come after them.
I've been a reptile keeper and lover for a long time, but I've never really kept snakes. And um, I think the one thing that actually, this is going to sound weird, is in Virginia. We go to Sandbridge, Virginia a lot. We started going there like 6 or 7 years ago, and it's called Back Bay or Backwater Bay, but there's cottonmouths everywhere, like
Sweet.
everywhere. And there's hiking trails all through this cottonmouth like swampish area, boardwalks, and there's cottonmouths just everywhere. And there's been two bites, and I think she said last 20 or 30 years, and one, I think both of them involved alcohol, but I could be incorrect on that.
And probably a male.
Yes, both of them are men. Yeah. But
100.
that's the game we play. We go there almost every single year. We go hiking, and the game is let's spot cottonmouths. And honestly, since I started going there, and I'm like, that's super interesting because even as a reptile lover, I think it's just human nature to be afraid of snakes. And then you learn
Right.
that these snakes don't want anything to do with you. They don't want to bite you. You could walk right past these cottonmouths and you won't even see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, talk to any reptile keeper or talk to anyone who's been bit by really any animal, and they're going to tell you that that bite was their fault.
Yeah.
Something leading up to that bite, something they did is what ended up leading to that situation. So,
Right. And majority of like most commonly kept snakes as pets, I hear over and over again, and I mean, I can now say this that I've been bit just a few times. um I'd rather get bit by one of my snakes than get scratched by my cats.
For sure.
Yeah.
yeah. So you kind of mentioned that you have been looking for breeders that are handling their babies, giving that interaction to their animals before it comes to your door.
Mhm.
How do you plan to interact with your animals? What do you plan to do with them? Maybe your kids getting involved, that kind
Oh
of thing.
yeah. My daughter, she's the one that's 13. She loves her ball python, and she's super excited for when I get a retic. I know that I'll probably have to like tell her like, all right, it's time to put the snake back. But I do plan on handling it every day, hopefully, for for a little bit at a time in the beginning. And then I see people have these like awesome snake playgrounds. I do have a screened-in covered porch, which it's not. It's only 3 season, well, probably 2 season for a retic, but having it build up with stuff for them to climb around and or them one.
Them. Look at it. See, you're already addicted, and you haven't even
Yeah.
gotten your one.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't stop at one.
Well, it's a good thing they're so expensive because I'd
Right.
probably have a few by now. But so I think that would be so cool. You see Lori I can't make names. Carini. Yep, she's got some awesome snake enclosure like enrichment things that she has set up, and just going to like the thrift store and looking around like what can I buy that my snake would like to climb on. And
Yeah, I can't remember who it is, but I've seen someone in one of the YouTube videos that has one of those dome jungle gyms pinned to his ceiling so they can just climb in and out of that. So we have Bob with Green Room who's doing stuff with like macrame. So there's
his
endless
little
options.
snake playground that he has in the background. I love that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's really cool. And it's also a good way to just get your kids like really fascinated and interested from like a good distance while being able to just love and appreciate and observe.
And it's good because both my kids are bigger, 11 and 13. So
they can handle a bite.
I don't have to worry about them like opening the cage and letting it out or,
right.
Like my daughter is my animal girl. She has not a maternal bone in her body for little kids, like my little grandnephews and nieces, but she loves animals. So
yeah. And if your kids, I mean, I feel like at those ages, like if I tell you to not open the cage because it's a retic, don't do that. And you do it anyways, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
Well, yep. That's called getting a retic bite because they think you're a mouse.
Yeah, I think 11, 13 is probably the perfect age for a kid to start with some small retics, but with some good parental supervision like you have going on over there.
Yeah. And retics are not the only snake I want. I eventually think I'll get a corn snake and things that are a little bit more I don't think I'll handle a corn snake like I would a retic or
right.
But
so it's crazy because like I absolutely love corn snakes, like looking at all the colors and the morphs. I don't have an interest to own them just because like I'm not a big colubrid fan, but like I think in that sense, like if I were to get a bioactive setup, naturalistic, and then just get the most beautiful corn snake that you can and just let it live happily in there, like I think that's something that I'd probably be down to do.
Well, it'd be amazing. And garter snakes, you can have a community of them.
Yeah.
And we have garter snakes everywhere around my house. I live out in the country. Not that I would catch a wild one, but be able to have like a communal snake setup, that would be amazing.
I've gone trail walking here in San Antonio and I've seen some garter snakes, like 2 or 3 of them poke their head up.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like it's really cool to see that they hang out together.
Well, my neighbor, they're afraid of them. And the little girl comes over and she's like, my mom hates these snakes. And she, and she's one of those like as good snake as a dead snake kind of people. And so I teach her, like, no, these eat the, they'll eat the pests that go into your barn and get in your goat feed. And
right. Yeah. I typically just reply with, good, a dead person's, just like.
Yeah. Well, I teach preschool, so I'm always teaching my kids about creepy crawlies. And I have my kids now tell me like, my mom found a spider and we put it outside because I told her Miss Jamie said you don't kill spiders. And
yep. See, you're growing that young generation,
shaping the future.
That's beautiful.
Now, do you get any opportunities where you are able to educate with the animals at the preschool?
Yes, my bearded dragon has been a visitor. And then actually
I don't assume the retic will.
Show and tell's your favorite day, huh?
Yeah, it is. Every time I do any kind of study that involves, like something I'm into, like my tarantula, actually the big tarantula I have she's been to my preschool. My roaches have been to my preschool. I will buy cricket feeders and I'll set up a little like 10-gallon aquarium with some soil and I'll bring crickets in for a couple days before I take them home and their bearded dragon food. I
That's
have
awesome.
probably not my retic, but once my ball python finally eats and we handle him a lot more and stuff, he'll probably come in. But one of another teacher's boyfriend had brought his ball pythons in.
Cool.
Yeah, and Danny just sent me a retic skin.
Oh, that's right. I saw
Oh,
that
Draxus. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
cannot wait to get that. I'm gonna laminate it. We're gonna
Oh,
hang it on
sweet.
the wall. Yep.
Sweet. I will say this. I know that you said probably not the retic, but I actually would encourage you. If you end
Yeah.
up getting a good, handleable retic,
Well,
this-
that's like it all depends on the particular snake I end up getting. Like,
and I can
Control
I mean,
the head, you're good.
yeah.
right, control the head, keep it away from the kid's face, but at the end of the day, like like there's just something about kids seeing a large, like a little bigger of an animal, that look on their face is just like it's priceless.
Oh yeah.
My helper, Sean, who comes over, he has half siblings that are younger, and I remember the first time that they came in and they were just like, whoa.
Well, even like my kids' friends come over and just see the tarantulas. They'll say, "Oh, I'm scared of those," and then I notice like throughout the night they'll get closer and closer, and because they're in a cabinet with a sliding glass door, so the cats don't knock them off, and then they're like, "Well, can you feed it?" Like it's just I feel
Yeah.
like it's just part of my job as a keeper to help people get over that fear, and if it's but even the teachers, like when the one dude brought his snakes into the daycare, I had in my spider. They're like, I don't want to see that, and then you'll see him creeping into your classroom to look, and then it's like, come
Every time.
closer. Yep.
So, what are your like long-term goals for the retic that you have, and how do you plan to ensure that they thrive with you?
No breeding. I know I've said that multiple times. I just don't think that's just in my jam. But just mostly to. I love research. I love when new papers come out, and I love when new like Ryan with the VivTech balls and LED. I know he's got a lot of skepticism, but everything he's proved so far has been amazing. I love that stuff. Everybody's got to be the first in something. There was a first in the fluorescent bulbs. And
Right.
I just like with my bearded dragon, he started off in a 40-gallon. He started off on paper towels, and then he had some soil, and then went bioactive. And now his new enclosure is going to be 6 feet long. It's going to be 3 feet high. He's going to have climbing opportunities and multiple ecosystems in there. That it's just part of the fun of having a limited amount of animals is learning more and more about the species,
Right.
and then the things you can do with that species, and then just bothering you guys constantly, ask you questions when something goes wrong or I'm confused or I
Hey,
already
that's what
do.
the Retic Lounge is about. So
Well, and I
we're
already
there
do it
for
now with my ball python, and I don't even have a retic yet. So
No, we welcome that kind of stuff. Yeah, I agree with that. Just I think that there is something about making something as naturalistic as possible. And what I mean by naturalistic, I'm not even talking about like having to go to the whole springtails and the whole, quote unquote bioactive, because truly, I was talking to someone about this. I won't name drop them, but they said something to me that really kind of blew my mind, because it's kind of true. They're like, no one here actually keeps a true like no one here keeps bioactive. I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, no one takes the type of soil and the ecosystem that snake is from and brings it over here and puts it in there. So therefore, all they're doing is throwing dirt and soil together, and they're putting a bunch of insects in there and calling it bioactive. But in reality, it's nothing like the actual true, what they're from. So, but like getting to do a naturalistic, and like what you said your plan is, like 1 part tropical, 1 part cave. It's really enticing to me as well. And I've even had thoughts of, when we move and I get a bigger place and I'm able to expand more, just being able to have opportunity to do that as well.
well, and I think that's again where enclosure size comes in. You can't do that in a tiny little cube or a tub
Right.
or a rack, or it's got to be something substantial. And
Yeah.
that's another thing about having a smaller. I know people don't like the word collection, but just I don't know another word for it. A smaller
I
collection of
say
animals.
collection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah,
gets
it's 'cause-
offended with collection?
oh, I've heard a couple of people like they're the crazy. So, but just having just a having a limited amount of space, I have to be very meaningful in what animals I bring into my house.
Right.
I want 35 different species of reptiles, but I got to make sure I have space for the ones that I bring in,
Right.
and do it right.
Yeah, I totally like that mindset too. Like, I hear a lot of people that are like, they'll inquire about a snake of mine. And it's really nice and refreshing to hear someone say like, I have to hold off for a bit. I need to get some upgraded enclosures for it's nice when people take care and prioritize the snakes they have first before just going out and buying more.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think a lot of people think that way.
Oh yeah. Well,
No.
and it's
all about the
nice.
next thing.
Oh, and I can see how it is. Like we have so many expos around me. I don't know what it is about where I live in Ohio. I'm like kind of between Cincinnati and Dayton and Columbus, like in that little area. But there's like 2 or 3 a month that I could go to, and there's one near Cincinnati, and I mean, I could go every month and buy, new animal. Like I want a leopard gecko. There's 15 tables of leopard geckos and crested geckos. I want a crested gecko, and just really, it takes a lot of willpower and having to put a new transmission in my van. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It takes me. Well, I find a snake I want every day.
yeah.
And the bad thing about being an adult is, it's my money. Like right? Like I can,
It's my money and I need it now.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. I also have a husband, and like trying to convince my husband that I want a snake that's going to cost between $2,000 when he's lived on a farm and they had free barn cats, and
Right.
their dogs lived outside because they were hound dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very, very supportive of, me and like
Your
I said,
weirdness.
yeah, my weirdness. Yeah. And, he helps me with my enclosures. He's helping me convert that, display cabin I got for my bearded dragon. I know he'll help me build my enclosure. If I tell him like, oh, I have this problem, like how are we going to get ventilation? He's like, his little engineer brain is like, I'm going to figure it out. But again, we're grown-ups. We have bills to pay. I have kids. My kids need braces, both of them. And so,
Well,
yeah.
let me ease one little misconception, and you're gonna have to do your research, but it seems like you're fine with doing that.
Yeah.
Just knowing what I've produced in the years, I've had 50%ers that stay well under that 12-foot mark and that are well under $1,000. So you don't always have to break the bank to get the size animal that you want.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. That's why I need you two to be my helpers.
Yeah. I mean, the safest way to guarantee
Yeah.
under 12 foot is
Absolutely.
getting a pure. But there's definitely animals out there that will not, they won't get 12 feet. That can definitely be much, much less than a pure. You just got to trust who you're getting it from and really just...
Well, that's another huge thing with the Facebook community is like that is such a huge debate. Like size, like what size? It's a guess, or we can guesstimate, Or
But the one thing everyone kind of agrees on, or at least most people agree on, is if you're able to do your research, look at the lineage of the parents, grandparents, great grandparents, as far back as you can go, then you can make an educated guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, an educated guess. And I mean, an educated guess is basically a fancy way of saying like a smart guess. I had a term that I was going to use, but no.
I was expecting more, Lucas.
Yeah, no, me too.
Come on, Lucas.
Man, drop the ball.
Well,
on that one.
is Ohio, going to come knocking at my door with a ruler? Like I don't know. Like
that,
yeah.
I doubt too. I wonder how they enforce any of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, is it possible that they could do that? I don't know anyone who ever has. Like, I mean, for example, here in Texas, you need an exotic species or indigenous. I forget what the actual permit is called, but you need a permit. You go to Walmart, it's $30, you get it, and then, like, you have to have locks, and there's certain parts that that you need to do in order to just keep responsibly. But like,
Is it a dangerous animal permit, something like that?
no. It's basically a permit that allows you to keep an animal that is not from the state of Texas.
Oh, okay.
I'll look it
Not
up right
native.
now.
Okay.
So, but they're never going to come knock on your door. And really, I mean, I feel like, now, don't get me wrong. I'm not
Never,
telling you.
never
Now that
say
we're-
never. I've
now that we're
had
putting this
animal
on YouTube.
control
Yeah.
knock on my door. So
Yeah.
So I guess it's more of a, it's unlikely, but at the same time, I'm also not trying to encourage people to break regulations and laws.
Oh, yeah.
Because when people do and they get caught, that's when the rest of us get screwed.
Right. And, ever since that, I think it was like 2012. I don't know when it was. And I had that big exotic zoo guy that let all his animals loose. And there was like lions running everywhere. And, but like I said, I don't know if I should say this there was people at the vending that were not following the rules. And I don't see, like, probably until it's a problem is when it's a problem.
Yeah.
I guess if
unfortunately.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And then laws are made, so it's,
Right,
it's
yeah.
up to us to kind of police within our community
Oh,
as
yeah.
much as we can.
And that's what I feel like too. I don't want other people to step in. I mean, I'm quite liberal, but I don't want things that I enjoy regulated.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I just, try to follow the rules as much as I can. And then if I can find something that's under that 12 foot and still get what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to circle back, it is called an exotic species permit.
There you go.
So I guess I want to ask one question, and then I want to start a rapid fire
Okay.
with you. So this last question is like, someone is in your shoes, but like several months back of like thinking about getting like the idea of getting one. They came across a Superdome for the first time like you did. What advice would you give to them?
My number one is join a community. Join a community of Retic keepers. That's your number one thing. You're going to get firsthand experience. You're going to have dumb questions, maybe like I do, and you're going to ask them. And that's the best way to learn. You can read all the things that you want about them, but until you actually interact with Retic keepers that have experience and been doing this for a while, you're not going to get the answers that you want. You may know temperature and you know like the facts, like they need this temperature and this humidity, but like, what if my Retic does this? What do I need to do, and who is a good breeder, and like, what should I look for, and how do I find a sick animal? So you need that community.
And we're lucky now. I mean, within the last 5-7 years, whatever, you can go on Facebook, type in whatever you're looking for, and there's a community for it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm in so many Facebook communities. A Retic one. I'm in a Savannah Monitor community because I want a Savannah Monitor. I'm in a bearded dragon community. I'm in advanced, herpetological husbandry, advancing, the one is husbandry week. I'm in a reptile lighting community, and I know that the VivTech is discussed a lot in that reptile lighting community. There's jerks. There's always going to be jerks. I work with jerks. No, I should say I work with jerks.
You're on
talking about your
Facebook. You're not getting off Facebook on these groups. You're still on their site, so expect the same behavior.
You just avoid the trolls. You avoid the drama, and there's always that's such a small percentage of it. And even sometimes the drama can be informative because
it can be informative, but I think it's important to know when and when not to interact with it.
Yeah.
And it can take a lot from you if you're even just reading into it and getting invested emotionally.
And that's why I'll see someone on the Facebook group and I'm like, I screenshot it and I go to the Discord. I'm like, did you guys see this? Let's talk about this. Because I know you guys and I know that we can have like, tell me what you think about this.
We can have a rational conversation about it.
Yeah.
Right. So any other comments or things that you want to make in regards to just doing your research and being prepared to buy a Retic before we jump into this really fun part?
No, just like I said, do your research, find community, find some friends, be financially prepared, because this is not a $30 leopard gecko you're going to buy at the expo. This is an investment, and
And they're eating big food, so
they
be
are,
ready to
yes,
invest into big
yes.
food.
Figure out the long run expenses before you decide that the animal itself is expensive, but then the enclosure is going to be expensive, the food's going to be expensive, the lighting's going to be expensive. Like, you just can't. This is not an impulse buy for sure.
But it is to some people.
It happens way too
happens,
often. But
I don't have any breeding ulterior motives, so mine's a
right.
Oh,
one and done. Hopefully.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's refreshing to hear, because I a lot of people who, some people have never even owned a retic, and they're like, yeah, I want to breed retics, and I'm like, but do you?
I got kids. I don't need to worry about snake babies.
Right. Oh man. Okay, so Nathan, you want to open it up, or you want me to?
Go for it. I'll jump in.
Okay. All right. Salty or sweet?
Depending on what time of the month it is.
Okay. Fair
All
statement.
right.
This is your first girl interview.
It is.
All right. Let's see. Oh wow. What's your favorite food?
Thai food.
Okay.
Just Thai food in general.
Are you more of an introvert or extrovert?
I am a introverted extrovert. I am totally an extrovert, but then I need to be alone for like a week.
Me too. I cut hair. That's where I get my extrovert side out, and then snakes at home, and I keep myself there.
I was gonna say, we're gonna put that to the test. A night out or a night in?
Now that I'm 46, a night in.
Okay.
But back in the day, a night out.
Okay. Any superpower you could have?
Probably. Oh, we have this conversation a lot in my family. I would probably say flight.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I always say telekinesis because it seems to cover a lot of all the others.
Yeah.
My go-to is I wish I could turn into any animal I wanted to.
That is always my second one.
Do you correct people's grammar?
No.
You're a teacher. You should.
Well, my kids' grammar is if they say, "Hey, I really like when you do this."
When you do this.
Yeah, when you do this.
Speaking of pet peeves, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, rudeness. I do not abide by rudeness. There's a quote from the Kingsmen, "Manners maketh man." It's my favorite quote in the entire universe.
Okay, I'll use that one for my barbers.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't not believe in ghosts.
Okay.
Right. I've never seen proof of one, but I'm not going to say they're not there, so.
Right. There's also not proof that they're not.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Okay, if you could have dinner and talk with anyone alive or dead from history.
Probably Anne Boleyn.
Okay.
She's been like a little minx, like she's a seductive and she's manipulative. I would like to know if that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're seeing a little bit of Jamie's personality come out. Cannonball into the pool or dip your toe in type of person?
Oh, cannonball.
Love it.
Every time.
Oh, yeah. My husband, I just talked about this.
Do you learn by watching or learn by doing?
Doing.
Okay. Let's see if I can. So, okay.
Round us out here.
Well, geez, now the pressure's on.
Pressure.
Well, it seemed like you were putting the pressure on yourself. I just wanted to add fuel to the fire.
Well, on that note, let's just wrap up for the evening. Jamie, can you let people know? You don't have a retic or
I'm just
reptile page, so
I don't.
Don't be a creep.
Shameless
don't go
self-promotion. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I mean, I have an Instagram. I have a private one, but I made a public one. It's mostly plants, but it has reptiles. It's Lost and Found Gardens. The Lost. What's those little things at the bottom? Not a dash,
underscores.
Yeah, underscore.
Okay.
And you'll find me. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jamie, you were our first female interview, and it was awesome having you on.
Thank you.
Our first interview without a retic, so you better believe we're following up with you a couple months into
Oh.
owning this animal and
Well,
getting
my
a little
husband
bit more
said,
information.
"Does this mean you're locked into buying a Retic now?"
You're locked into our podcast for a
I
little
am.
while.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in and sticking with us through the end. Drop your comments down below if there's anything else that you recommend that people getting into retics that don't have one should do. Don't forget on YouTube to hit that like button and hit the notification button. Nathan, you got anything else?
no, not much besides, guys, we have our Discord meeting coming up this Friday. So if you want to jump in, Patreon links down in the description. Join us and hang out for a little bit. But besides that, we'll see you next week.